What drew me to music is just a lot of stuff that I've been going through in my life. I found when I was 14, I just started writing stuff down, and the next thing you know, it just started coming out in rhymes. I don't know how, it just did. And so I guess I started listening to a lot of different artists, a lot of different people, and then I just started turning them into songs. It was way before beats and everything, and that's kind of what drew me to music, I guess. I'm inspired by numerous different artists. I mean, KJ52 is one of my first persons that I started listening to, but my very first artist that I ever listened to as a rap song was Toby Mac's song called Irene. It was in a Wow Hits 2003 CD back in 2003, and you know, I got the CD and I listened to the song and I'm like, wow. You know, this is like Christian rap. It was like the greatest thing I've ever seen, and that's basically who inspired me initially was Toby Mac, and then eventually I started listening to like Lecrae and Andy Mineo and stuff like that. So, but I think a lot of my songs today, I was inspired heavily by NF, because he does a lot of his songs based on things he's been through in his life and stuff, and I kind of did a lot of that as well. In my creative process, I guess you can say I just, it's one of them things when a lot of times I just, sometimes I would even be like reading the Bible or something, and the next thing you know, I just, something would come to me in my head, and then I would just start writing it down. Or you know, I'd hear something else, like another song on the radio, or some songs I'm listening to. I listen to Pandora a lot. And then something would come to me, and I actually get inspiration through other songs. And when I hear that, a lot of the times I listen to music and stuff to kind of shake off something I'm dealing with, just something inside of me. And what I do is I take that feeling home. I listen to other music and I just start writing it down. So honestly, that's kind of how my creative process kind of works. An average day for me is, I mean, it's simple. I mean, I have a regular job, 7 to 3:30, Monday through Friday. I get weekends off, thank God. But I just wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, got to get my son ready to go to the babysitter. And then I go to work. I drive about an hour every day, back and forth to work, and it's worth it because, you know, it pays the bills. And as for hidden meanings in my music, I try to be as real as possible, as straightforward. If I want to speak directly to someone that I know might be dealing with, like say suicide or people dealing with drinking or drugs or something, then I would address that just as that is. But as for hidden meanings, the only thing that might be hidden is just certain things. I might write a song about a certain situation, and it kind of comes out in the way that I put it down on paper and get a beat and everything else. So the average person might not know exactly what it means, but I would, and that other person that it involves might deal with. So that's the only real hidden meaning that I would have. As of right now, I have collaborated with a couple people. I mean, Ben Akers, I mean, he's actually got another album coming out. I'm going to be doing the drums for him on his album. But he's done a couple songs with me. I've done a song with my mother, actually. We're doing stuff, and on the next coming albums, I'll be doing some collaborations with other people that I'm meeting. I'm meeting them at shows, at events and stuff, that I think that they're pretty creative and they're good musically, and I think it would be awesome to do songs with them. And as for my process of collaborating with those people, it's real simple. You know, I would either get a beat or something, and I would record like a quick demo of what I'm going to do on it, and then I'm going to send it to them as through email or through text or however, and then they're going to write their part, and then once we get everything written, we come together in the studio and do it. And as for people I meet, you know, if I'm at an event or a show or something, and I meet with someone that I would consider to be a fan, someone that enjoys my music, I mean, usually they come up to me and, you know, and they say, hey, you know, great job, you do some good music and stuff. And I really enjoy talking with and relating with people. You know, if they're dealing with something, I love to be able to listen to share with, and it's stuff that I would never share with anyone else, you know, and but be able to even mentor people and just just be real with people and love on them and show them that I really truly care about their needs, no matter what they're going through. And that's kind of the way I like to interact with people, interact with fans and stuff. So my favorite part about my music is I love the messages that I do. It's kind of funny actually, because I was sharing some of my music with my dad, and some of the songs that I've actually made and we've done are actually stuff that he didn't even really know a whole lot about, growing up and stuff that I've really dealt with. And he's just now, I mean, it's like 15 years later, and he's just now realizing, I didn't realize my son was dealing with all this stuff, and my favorite part about everything is just being able to, just my messages, and being able to put myself out there and show people that, hey man, I've been there, I've dealt with some stuff, and being able to just minister to someone. And my least favorite is I am a perfectionist, so I have trouble. I believe I have trouble with flowing sometimes, and because I like to be perfect, I like to be spot on. And sometimes when we're in the studio, it's different whenever I'm live, because when I'm live I get to be, interact with people and stuff. But when I'm recording, it's like I record like 2 or 3 lines and I stop and then we go back a little bit, then I record the next few lines, and because I like to be spot on, and I think that if I just go straight on, sometimes I feel like I need to learn how to do that, but sometimes if I just go straight on, do the entire verse, there are going to be bits and pieces that just aren't going to fit, and I like to be perfect. And I guess my least favorite is sometimes my flow when I'm recording. I've been playing drums for about 8 years, and I started getting decent since about 2010 is when I started playing. And then I started getting decent around 2011. I was playing in a youth group and everything, and I used to be so scared when I'd get on stage. Until things started happening. I broke sticks in front of people. I have chucked my stick across the room. I remember this one time I was performing at an event with another ministry, and I actually broke a stick during a song, and it actually hit one of our guitar players in the head. The piece that broke off. I've literally done it all. So in the beginning, yes, I've dealt with a lot of performance anxiety. I've wondered, oh man, I don't want to mess up, But then I've messed up so many times in front of people. Eventually, you get numb to it. And so like if I mess up, if I say something stupid, I just keep going. I don't even worry about it. I don't freeze up anymore. And it's funny because I used to a lot before I became center stage. I mean, it's crazy. It's just like I said. It's just if you're in front of some real good people, I'll say, because pretty much all the shows and stuff have been easy for me. I mean, I've been blessed in that aspect because everyone has been so good to me and so supportive of what I do, whether I'm drumming or whether I'm rapping, and people have just loved it, and I think because of that, God has blessed me in that aspect. To not really be scared, but I have before, just like everyone else. I've got clammy hands and sweaty, and my adrenaline be racing. So by the time my first song is done, I'm like, wanting to just calm down. But it doesn't really happen like that anymore, just because of just how many people I've been in front of. My favorite food is pizza. I mean, it's got your 5 basic food groups. It's got your meat, your fruits and veggies. There's sauce. Is sauce a food group? I don't know. Tomatoes would be like, I guess tomatoes would be the like the fruits or veggies. I guess it depends on your aspect, because I think it's technically a fruit, but I call it a veggies because if you look at like a package of like carrots or something, and it's got a little picture, usually there's a tomato within that little picture, so. But anyways, yeah, pizza is my favorite food. And as for junk food, I can't get enough of cheesecake. What advice that I would give to someone that's trying to start up their own music thing? Everything happened with me kind of, I believe, was God ordained, because I met my producer years ago, and he gave me a chance, and he heard he didn't hear anything. He did, but it wasn't that great. But he didn't he read a lot of my rhymes and stuff, and he thought they were pretty decent, and so he gave me a chance, and everything kind of fell into line with me, and a lot of mine was a lot of trusting in the Lord. So if anyone is wanting to follow in my footsteps, do what I do, you need to trust in the Lord that He's gonna bring you through this, and He's gonna get you through whatever it is you're dealing with, and whatever you want to do with your life, because I didn't know for years and years what I wanted to pursue, and I mean, I would bounce around. I mean, I wanted to be a police officer at one time, and then I wanted to go to school to be a counselor at one time, and there was just so much stuff that I wanted to do, and I never thought music was really in the cards for me as a career. As of right now, it's not, but I'm hoping in the future it will be. I'm hoping I'll be able to quit my job and be able to do this full time. But that sort of thing, you know, comes with just a lot of sacrifice and a lot of time. So the only real advice that I can give to anyone, no matter what you're dealing with or what you want to do with your life, you have to trust in the Lord. He will bring you to that point, because I believe that everything that I've done up until now has been ordained and orchestrated by God, by Jesus, by my faithfulness to Him, because I've been through so much in my life, and just at the age of 25. But honestly, you just got to follow your dream, follow what you know that what gift God has given you. At the end of the day, He's the one that's going to mold you into the person that He needs you or wants you to be. So you have to trust in Him to get you out of whatever situation you're dealing with. And if you're wanting to step out and do this thing as well, you need to let God in, let Him transform you, and just shake off the world and shake off whatever whatever's holding you back, because that's what I did for a very long time. I was held back, and so if you really want to branch out and be who God created you to be, you need to just let Him in and let him be God. I grew up in church. When my dad got saved, he got saved, I was barely a year old, I think. Maybe even less than that. My mom, she's always been saved. She grew up in church. She sang in church her entire life under the Nazarene denomination most of the time, and she went and she was always a very good church girl and everything. And my dad was the opposite of my mom. But when he got saved, we went every time. We were so blessed because every time we went, we knew there was a church service to be going to. We went to anything. We didn't stop at whatever denomination, as long as it was a Christian church. We didn't go to, oh, we're only going to go to Nazarenes or Assemblies of God. We went to just anything that was a Christian church. That was a Bible-believing church. Real lively even, and just anywhere where there was a service. So my whole life I've been going to church, and I've seen the works of God, and I know it was more than just knowing of God. I've had a relationship with Him for the most of my whole life, but there was a season in my life where I had a sister at one time when I believe I was 3 years old when she was born. By the time I was 5 years old, she ended up passing away because she had a lot of health problems. Seizure disorder was what took her life. You know, she would wake up in the middle of the night, just seizing up, and we'd have to call the ambulance and everything else. And then one morning, my mom woke up to give her a morning feeding, and she went to a crib, and she wasn't breathing. And so, of course, my dad woke up, and you know, they called the ambulance, and we lived out in the middle of almost nowhere, out in the middle of a trailer park. And my parents called the ambulance, and it took them about 10 minutes to get there. It felt like 10 hours, but they ended up getting there, and she was already gone at that time. And it was actually, she passed away 2 days before Halloween, and her funeral was on Halloween Day. You know, we held a service for her and everything. And then years on down the line, we ended up moving from Tennessee to Arizona. And my mom became pregnant again with my baby brother named Daniel. And he had this very same health problems that Jessica had, and my sister. He ended up, pretty much the same thing happened. I mean, his was a little bit, I believe his was a little bit worse though. He was hooked up to some sleep apnea monitors and everything else. And it was really it was really tough because it was like my parents knew that something was about to happen with him. It's just, of course, it was hard for them to let him go. So they let him live. I think about 2 years, I think, is how old he was when he eventually passed away. But I do remember the day like it was yesterday. We went to church. It was a Christmas Eve service, I believe, at my church. And the next thing you know, his monitor starts going off. And if that goes off, it means he stopped breathing. He'd be napping or something, and then just he would quit breathing. And that's what happened. His monitors went off, and he wouldn't start breathing again. So they had to grab him, and they didn't even call ambulances. They just grabbed him and took off with him. And my grandmother was there, so I had to go home with her for the day after church. And he left. And part of my parents' part of the story is on Christmas Day, they had to answer the questions for the doctors. The doctors had to ask them a simple question, whether or not to pull the plug on him or to let him exist, not so much live, because the machines that he was hooked up to was keeping him alive. And on Christmas Day, they had to, they knew what to do in their heart. It was hard for them as parents. I mean, of course, I couldn't imagine, because I'm a father myself now, and I couldn't imagine having to tell the doctors to pull the plug on my child. I couldn't do it, but they had to. And so that's kind of how everything unfolded. And at this point in my life, I was bullied a lot in grade school. At this point, I believe I was 7, I might have been 8 years old when they had to pull the plug on him, so to speak. And I believe I was, I was bullied so much in school, and it's just my family, we were so involved in church and so involved in everything. At this point in my life, it was hard for me to even believe in an existence of God. So for a very long time, I didn't even believe God existed, from the time I was about 8 years old until the time I was 16. But I still went to church. I still played the part. I still pretended. I was I guess we call them two-timers at our church when you go to church just Easter and Sunday, or just Easter and Christmas. But I was even less than that, because it was one of them things where I just I didn't believe in God, even though I would still listen to Christian music and listen to praise and worship and still go to church and doing everything my parents wanted me to do. I still didn't. I didn't even believe in God, because I was thinking to myself, how could God let this happen to my sister and then my brother, and even years before even I was born, my parents had 2 miscarriages, my mind could not fathom how this could happen to us. With how faithful that we were with our church and how blessed, but at the same time, knowing that my sister and my brother had passed, and then like remembering all the years of trouble, of like financial trouble that we had back in Tennessee when my sister was alive, or I think even before she was alive. There were times when we were so broke, we were about ready to have some macaroni and cheese and hot dogs for Thanksgiving dinner. But we came home from church, and there was an entire spread on our table, like literally like turkey and just everything for Thanksgiving, pumpkin pie, and still warm. And the craziest thing about all that is that there wasn't even footprints in the snow. And just so remembering the blessings that we had, that we see God right there, right in our face, and then all of a sudden now he's gone. So it was hard for me it's like I had so much conflicting in my head. It was like I wanted to not believe in God, but at the same time I couldn't, because of what I've seen previously. So it's like I'm thinking to myself, all right, God, what are you doing here? So really, I guess I can say that I didn't want to believe in him, but I had to, because I've seen it. It isn't just a faith with me anymore. It was more of a proof. When I was 16 years old, I went to a youth group called NOS, and it was at a Nazarene church when we moved because I moved to West Virginia when I was 12. And I started going to a youth group called NOS. I was going to this youth group for a couple years. I was about 14, maybe 15 when I started going to this youth group. But by the time I was 16, I was involved in another youth group, and I was playing drums and everything else. But I think this might have been right before I was playing drums. I can't quite remember. I feel like it's been so long. But I went to a service at NOS, and it was just the most amazing thing that I've ever been a part of. And it's like the Spirit of God just came over me, and it was like one of them things where I felt Him there, which is weird because where I was going to church, it wasn't really a Holy Spirit-filled church. That's what was weird about it. It wasn't really it was a Bible-believing church, but it was very feel-good, and I'm not a big fan of feel-good churches. If you don't know what that is, it's when they're like, you can do anything but still make it to heaven, and, one of them things that just kind of builds you up. Like nothing, it's good to go to a place that builds you up, but nothing that's telling you the bad of what could happen if you don't live right. And, and that's kind of the church that I went to. But at this particular youth group that I was involved in, it just like God came over me, like the Spirit was just heavy in the place. And I finally said, okay, God, if you're real, I want you to reveal yourself to me. And He did that night. And that night is when I finally just laid my life out and said, okay, from this point on, no matter what I go through in my entire life, from this point on, I'm 25 now, so when I was 16, so that was about 9 years ago, I said to God, I'm never going to try to not believe in you again. I might go through tough times, and I might even argue with you sometimes, God, but I'm never going to not believe in you again, because you have to be real. I feel you, and that's kind of how my life turned around. And I started getting involved, with the other church that I started attending, because God really opened up my eyes from that moment on, and I could just see just the different burdens. Because I even prayed God, sometimes I feel like this was a mistake because of everything that I've dealt with up until now. I've asked God to burden me with what has burdened you, and it's like from that moment on, my eyes were opened up, and it's like I can just see the sin, and I can just see everything, and and it's just like I didn't want any part of that, So like, I made mistakes myself, you know what I mean? So it's not like I wasn't like perfect up until I was married, you know what I mean? Nothing like that. It's just that like I could see it, and I didn't want any part of it. And it's like my heart broke for what broke His. And that's what I prayed for. Sometimes I feel like that might have been a mistake, because I'm like, I see it all around me. And then when I eventually took that step, and eventually I lost my virginity and everything else. And I'm just like, oh man. And she ended up breaking up with me. And that's a whole different story. But like, that was when I tried to kind of close myself off. I still had a relationship with God. It wasn't like I didn't believe in Him, but it's just like I tried to get into my own little cocoon, and I wanted to be happy again, and I did everything that I could, and which of course led up to another girl that I hooked up with, and I just did whatever I wanted to with, and and that was a mistake in itself, and then I finally met who was my wife at one time. And that's another real long story, but I ended up getting with her, and her and we've had sex before we were married. It wasn't anything, we didn't go biblical there either, and then finally we ended up getting married. And when we got married, we had a son and everything, and I can't even really explain what all happened. It was just, everything happened so quickly. Things kind of started to fall apart left and right. The first 2 years of our marriage was great. We had our son, and we had a great family for a good year or so, after he was born. And we had a good marriage up until, we started having some typical marital problems, and she got a new job. And in this job, she worked with a lot of younger kids, like 18 to 19 year olds. And she would come to them with advice, and and they would tell her that she deserves better, stuff like that. And it was just typical marital stuff. Any married couple would go through this when they start out, and that's all it really was. And of course she's kind of met a guy, and one thing led to another. She ended up cheating, and I ended up even having her come back, and we try to resolve some issues, but she didn't stop, and now I'm not trying to paint her as a bad bad person or a bad mother even, because she hurt me in a way that I didn't expect that I would get hurt. After everything that I've been through in my life, I didn't expect that I would get hurt again and again, and even after I gave her a second chance. But that kind of leads up to where we are now, with my walk with God, which I believe that even now, even everything that I've been going through now, I believe that my walk with God has been getting stronger and stronger every day. And it's because of some stuff that I've been going through since that promise that I made to God that I've kept. There is not a time in my life, I mean, there might have been times in my life when I thought, oh, maybe if I just kill myself, everything will be over with, you know, and everything. And you know, those thoughts have entered my mind, you know, but not one time did I think, is God even real? My thing was more of looking up and asking God, you know, God, where are you? I know you're there, but I can't really feel you in this season, in this moment. So God, I'm asking you to come down and let me feel you, because I can't right now. And so if you don't take anything out of this video that I have, you know, it's just to let you know that God is always there. He's always gonna walk you through this fire. He's always gonna get you through, no matter what you're going through. You just have to trust in Him and believe in Him, because there is a God. There is someone that is looking out for you, and that will always be there for you. And that's what I needed to let my mind realize. So all these songs that I have, that I'm gonna have out, which on my album coming out, these songs are kind of depicting that, you know, depicting just being real, just being who you are in the Lord, because it's something that I've never done this before, and I really felt in my heart God has burdened me with this, with being an artist like this, to be able to minister to people, because it's what that's who I am. So I guess the only way that I can end this off is to just remind you that there is a God, there is someone that is going to give you hope no matter what you're dealing with. My album is dropping on January 1st, 2019, and I hope you guys catch a copy. So I love you.